All right, 30 minutes really isn't that much time, so I'm going to just get cranking. That's one image of Stanza. I really believe that you need to know about me because you need to understand what my biases are when I'm speaking to you. So the key things you need to know about me is I'm not from publishing, I'm new to publishing, I'm new to consumer. I've been in this space for about a year. We are a bunch of enterprise Java geeks at Stanza and have somehow managed to create a book reader. That's one bias you need to be aware of. The second is we come from open source enterprise Java background. So a lot of the things you're going to hear about us, you'll probably see the connections to that. And the last thing, used to be a professional gambler. You know, everyone says you want to live in interesting times, and in the electronic book world, we live in some pretty darn interesting times. Just take I think this slide's a little bit off, say take the last 35 days in this space. The number of announcements that we've seen, and these aren't by little mom and pop shops, these are by massive billion-dollar-plus companies. February 5th, Google announces their book search, which is now available for mobile devices, including the iPhone. Amazon, not to be outdone, on February 6th hints at a mobile device solution. Not that they had another announcement coming 3 days later. On February 9th, they announced the Kindle 2 launch in New York to much fanfare. On February 16th, Adobe announced their Adobe Reader Mobile SDK 9, which went GA today. So the slide's not even up to date as far as what's going on today. February 25th, Canada's Indigo announced Short Covers, which is an iPhone app for reading. March 4th, the Kindle iPhone launch happened. And March 5th, Barnes & Noble acquired Fictionwise. So, you miss a week. You go on vacation for a week, and the whole world has changed. I'm pretty sure Mike Smith, I'm stealing a slide from his deck. But the key point of this slide is we're at an inflection point. What's interesting, though, is 52 million in wholesale numbers for the U.S. in the last 4 quarters on ebooks. PricewaterhouseCoopers claims that in 2008, there were $1.3 billion of ebooks sold worldwide. So there's a little gap in those numbers, which again tells you something about the space. Hard to measure, as I think one of our previous speakers even mentioned. What's happening? Why is there a hockey stick in ebooks when there really isn't a hockey stick really in anywhere else in publishing, it appears? I cannot minimize how important Oprah is to this whole thing. The moment she talked about the Kindle as her favorite thing, I think completely changed the ballgame. My guess is Amazon's a pretty smart company, and they didn't really mean to run out of Kindles over Christmas. That said, this is not the first time Oprah has pitched a ebook reader. I believe about 7 years ago, she pitched the Rocket ebook and called that one of her favorite things. So, why is this time different? One, we just talked about a little bit on a previous slide, but big name vendors involved. Amazon, Google, Barnes & Noble, Sony. These aren't, guys like, Lexcycle with, 3 guys and a dog. These are real live big companies. Competition is a very, very, very good thing. There are things that I think, different folks are doing. The Kindle application does some things really, really well. And guess what? A lot of people are going to say, let's follow that and try and repeat that. There's also been a ton of technological advances. On just the hardware side, we've got this advent of netbooks, these very cheap laptops that are Linux-based. There's lots and lots of very cool new readers coming out. It seems like every month there's 3 or 4 announcements of a new device that's going to be coming out in 2010 or 4th quarter of this year. The device that's highlighted on the left is the Readius, which is, if you haven't seen it yet, it's very cool. Of course, it's, I think, a year and a half being GA. It's about a cell phone sized device that has a fold-out screen or a rollable screen. So you can keep it in your pocket but get still a 5-inch screen, which is kind of cool. E-ink. There's been lots and lots of talk about that. That's the Kindle, the Sony Reader, and the Plastic Logic device, which is very, very cool. But the ease on your eyes of e-ink devices, albeit in black and white, is a significant, I think, advance in technology that's making ebooks more possible to read from. On the mobile space, we've, 7, 8 years ago, we had the Palm, and the PDA was going to be the ebook reader du jour. And unfortunately, miniaturization kind of hit the space, and all of a sudden, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to read on one of those really, really tiny BlackBerry screens. What's changed this time? It's not just the iPhone. Despite I think the storm's very bad press that it's received, nonetheless, there's multiple devices that are trying to do large screens, touch screens, very, very high resolution screens. The Palm Pre has been announced. The G1 is out there, the Google Android phone. The fact that you have another operating system where in Barcelona at the mobile conference, 7 new devices were announced that were going to be supporting Google Android. There's so much activity on the mobile side that it makes a huge difference. Another thing that I think has changed the game is Apple's App Store. If you've had a BlackBerry or a Palm or any of those other smartphone devices in the past and you tried to go find an application to do anything, you're searching on the web to find it. You are trying to compare, say, 3 different things that hopefully Google has returned to you and say, oh, how do these compare? This one location which has the bazaar to figure out which app you want has made a huge difference. Apple is really, really enjoying some of the benefits of the App Store. Morgan really wanted me to talk about what things you're facing, so I'm going to try and walk through some of that. If I was a small publisher or, a medium-sized publisher or a big publisher for that matter, this is a crazy time. Some of the announcements I talked about, but just it's the effect of a business that's been around for 20 years. I mean, ebooks have been around for so long. So you guys have to contend with this. The alphabet soup of ebooks, whether it's the formats, and I know I missed a bunch, which is hard to believe. DRM systems, I mean, these are all proprietary, let alone, which ones should you use? Which ones go with which format? This is not an easy thing to navigate. Again, referencing Mike Smith and the IDPF, at least on the side, there's some ray of hope here. You're going to have, the EPUB as a standard, again, coming from the enterprise Java world, we've seen the benefits of a standard versus proprietary systems and the lock-in that proprietary systems have. We're huge proponents of the EPUB standard, where we're, as I'll show later, I think we have a significant number of probably most of the EPUBs that have been downloaded because of Stanza. The bottom line is, though, the proliferation of proprietary formats and DRM, at the end of the day, is terrible for users. It's terrible for the readers. It's a great thing for the vendors who want to create lock-in. I think Cory Doctorow at TOC probably summarized the DRM issue the best. If you own something and someone takes that and puts a lock on it, and doesn't give you the key, they're not doing it in your best interest. All of that said, my personal feelings about DRM are irrelevant. Sure, still require DRM, and in our product we have it, and we're adding more DRM systems into it. On the dedicated device side, the 2 main players right now are the Kindle, which I know isn't available here, but nonetheless it's still covered here more than the Sony Reader is, at least from the press clippings. I actually did a search, and which I thought was a little interesting. The Sony Reader, and then this whole slew of stuff that's coming. I'm, again, missing a bunch. I've been corrected on the slide recently about how many things I'm actually missing. But this was an effort to put it, I guess it should be twice the size is what I've been told. The stuff on the right side are things that are coming in the future that I know about, and the stuff on the left side supposedly are things that are available today. It's not any easier on the mobile side. On the iPhone, I've got about close to 10 different applications right now that readers can read from, let alone all of the thousands of standalone book applications that are there. On other devices, there's a whole bunch of slew of devices, or a whole slew of applications as well. And I think just about everyone and their dog, ourselves included, have indicated that we are going to enter into other devices, so Android and BlackBerry, and somebody was just talking to me that we need to talk to the Palm Pre guys. So it is not a simple system. It is not a simple world. At the end, I'll have some guidance for you, but one of the things I'm suggesting to publishers is do EPUB. You're probably going to have to do AZW, which is the Amazon format. And keep doing PDF. It's still the #1 format that books are read on. And it's still very, very important. Whether I think an experience or not is, again, irrelevant. So, Stanza. This is probably what I know most about in the ebook space, which is our product. I want to highlight a few things about the iPhone that makes it a unique device for reading. First of all, it has international reach. I think it's available in 75 different countries. And just to give you a guidance on a story we learned, I can tell you the week that the iPhone launched in Brazil, because we got 20 requests that week for Portuguese books. That is kind of the international reach, and then the fact that these people are downloading applications and then feel compelled enough to, find our support email and call us up and let us know that, or email us that they needed books. The color display. Just because e-ink is not color, we highlight that. It's a multifunction device. It's your phone. It's your catches up on episodes of Private Practice on it. Different things like that. It is a multifunction device, and it's adding functions every day. Built-in wireless, goes without saying. It's backlit. Again, it's a comparison to e-ink, but backlit's really valuable when it's late at night and you don't want to keep your spouse awake. And then I talked a little bit about the App Store. So we tend to be very, very open with our numbers and our details about our company, so this slide is about us. We launched our iPhone application on July 13th. We have, as of this past weekend, we passed the 1.5 million user mark. Those users come from 60 different countries. They have downloaded over 7 million books. Our catalog of books includes a little over 100,000 books. About half of those are free, so off copyright stuff and Creative Commons, and the other half are for pay. So Twilight and stuff like that. We've translated the application into 12 languages. The way we've done it is we rely on the community. So someone comes to us and says, hey, we want your application to be translated into Chinese. We want the menus in Chinese. We say, great, you want to do it? And they go off and do it generally. And they come back to us and say, and we put it out there. And when no one complains, we figure it's a pretty good translation. We've gotten lots of press, and that's been really nice. But the things, I've said this before in other talks, but the things that I've probably valued the most were one blog and 2 different tweets. A blogger once wrote he missed his bus stop or train stop 6 different times because he was reading a book in Stanza. And to me, when we started this whole thing, that was what it was all about, an immersive reading experience that couldn't be, well, preferably wouldn't be distinguished between what you do with a book. And the fact that somebody was missing their bus stops because they were so immersed in their book was probably one of the greatest things we heard. 2 other things were somebody was complaining on Twitter because they were tapping the right side of their physical book and it wasn't advancing the page for them. And the last one was somebody complained because he kept looking up at the top of the book to see what time it was, and needless to say, it wasn't there. So. I think, somewhat different than most of the iPhone applications out there, or most of the devices out there, we are not tied to a particular retail outlet or a particular vendor on that front. So what we've done is said, you know what, let's be different than Amazon. Let's go out and partner with lots of retailers and give people choice as far as who they want to purchase. Let's kind of act like the internet a little bit. So our sources of commercial content are all romance ebooks, books on board, fiction-wise. We just launched an O'Reilly catalog, which is kind of cool. and then Smashwords much more on the independent publishing side. What's fascinating, if you look at our sales, it's just like print. You know, Stephanie Meyer and Twilight were absolutely critical for us in December and January as far as where our sales came from, to the point that I felt compelled to read Twilight, which I just finished. I clearly was not the target audience. Sources of free content. This is, again, something I think we do that's a little bit unique, but we try to get as much free content as possible out there. So Harlequin, locally here, Feed Books, Project Gutenberg, Munzie's, Book Glut, and Random House. Project Gutenberg is really our main source of free books. There's about 10 free books from there. Again, mostly off copyright stuff. But it's kind of neat to see some publishers also doing promotions with us to get free content out there. We don't have any call home features in our application, so this is based on survey data. But we asked our users, where do you read? Where do you read Stanza with? We've gotten about 7,000 responses, so we think it's reasonably representative. In bed, commuting, but if you look at all of these types of things, most of them are related to the fact that the device is a convenient device. It's in your pocket or in your handbag at all times. And I think that is a huge distinction between us versus some of the dedicated readers. The fun story around the 2 write-ins in the bathroom, there was a third write-in which said he couldn't figure out which one he needed to put, whether it was other and in the bathroom or at work, because he read, his primary place he read was in the bathroom at work. I hinted at some of the publisher promotions. Pan Macmillan has a bunch of excerpts in Stanza where at the end of the excerpt it takes you to their website to do the purchases. The Random House and Harlequin free promos I think are very, very interesting. They're kind of backlists of certain authors, or backlists in the Harlequin case of each one of their imprints, and it gives users a chance to experience how to read on an iPhone for free with no, you know, nothing getting in the way like price or putting in a credit card number, and experiencing that. And the logic being, if it was a good experience, which generally it is, they'll go out and buy more books from those various vendors. We've also done some private labeling of Stanza and created single book applications that are sold. This one was kind of a very obvious one, but an iPhone manual for the iPhone. To O'Reilly's credit, they've played around with price. They've done lots and lots of different bits and tested it out. The best thing of all, I think, about the iPhone The Missing Manual is it has 200 color images in it, and it gives you an idea of just how beautifully those images can be rendered in an iPhone. A couple days ago, we launched Hunted, which is a vampire teen book. The cool thing about it is it was launched on the exact same day as the physical book, and as far as we know, that's the first time a standalone book application that's happened. So, lessons learned. For us, because we don't know the industry, we came at it with a very naive, very dumb way of looking at things, which is the only constituent in the whole value chain that we cared about were the readers. And that's what we focused on from front and center, and I think that was a good decision. Quality matters, and this is absolutely critical. We did not launch the day the App Store went live. We were not ready to. We didn't feel the application was quite ready. We launched 3 days later. Painful, because for a month, every article about the App Store talked about the apps that were there when the App Store launched. But because you have this rating system where people can rate applications and say if they like it or don't like it, people tend to look for the best rated applications. Those tend to become more popular, and all of a sudden you're in this very nice vicious cycle, or virtuous cycle in that case, of you're going to keep being found. At the same time, if you're a number 35 or number 100 application, it's very, very difficult to be found, and all of a sudden you're in this very ugly vicious cycle. But at the end of the day, the quality matters, and that's the one thing that is measurable. Popularity, you can get popularity on Amazon, but quality is the only kind of real measurable thing, and the App Store gives you this wonderful scorecard. We believe that every reader is unique, and our application is kind of designed that way. anytime you offer 125 different font colors, 125 different background colors, 21 different fonts, you're allowing people to read exactly the way they want to. We've gotten incredible kudos from the accessibility community because in that environment, so they like to read with letters about yay big, and that we allow for that. I'll skip over a couple more of these. You have to look at this as a holistic view of what the reading experience is. Not just the reading experience, but the search and browse, the finding of the book, the purchase, the download of the book, and then the actual reading experience. It's not enough any longer to just focus on any one of those pieces. The bar's been set a lot higher. I'm going to skip over this to get to some publisher lessons. When you're working with any of these ebook retailers, your call to actions have to be very clear. You're in this wonderful world where it can actually be measured. So measure it and see what you're doing right, see what you're doing wrong. I keep saying this, hold your technology providers, conversion houses, and distributors to a higher standard. Use EPUB, try and think about DRM free, I know it's hard. And think about multimedia when you're going through this. I'm gonna kind of stop here and I guess see if there's, do I have more time? Oh, okay, sorry. I saw, okay, sorry, the sign said something else. Probably get closer to the mic, I'm guessing. All right, good, I can talk more about some of this stuff. Experiment. I cannot say this loud enough. Experiment. Figure out what it is that works for you. Andrew Savickas from O'Reilly, I think if he had had his druthers, he basically was asking me, we launched the iPhone The Missing Manual on December 20th, okay? Every single day, Andrew was asking me for updates on what were the numbers, how are the sales numbers doing, what does this look like? He gave me December 25th off, thankfully, but that was about the only day for the first 3 weeks that he actually gave me. I didn't get an email from him saying, hey, any update on the numbers? The number of different ways he asked that question was pretty amazing. But experiment and try different things. I don't know what's going to work for you in your space. In reference books, maybe what O'Reilly's doing with bundles, physical and electronic bundles, may make a lot of sense. Figure it out, and the only way you're going to do that is by experimenting. Have a budget for marketing for ebooks. I can't tell you the number of houses that don't. Major publishers that do not have a single budget for marketing for ebooks. This is the same as physical books, folks. It's not any different. Start to figure out how to support your authors a little bit better in the ebook world. At least be kind of the signpost and the guidance and the gurus to tell them, here are some of the things you can do that we've seen that have been successful, here are the things that haven't. And please don't let this turn into the movie industry where it's just all about blockbusters and Tina Fey's getting $5 million advances and stuff like that. There's lots and lots of shacks out there. Try and, in Austin we have Greenleaf Publishing, which is this very relatively small publishing house who has 300 titles, 4 of which were New York Times bestsellers. You can do very, very well in this environment if you do the things that, as publishers, you do well. And then the author lessons, don't leave the marketing just for your publishers. You've got to participate and do it as well. And just get out there as much as you can. All right, any questions?
Are you imagining a time when Stanza is even more successful than it is now, that you would reject anything that had DRM associated with it?
God, I would love to say yes. I run a business, so probably not. I hope the world changes to that point where I would love to be able to do that. That said, there is a cost to DRM, right? There is actually a price point for DRM. I'm under NDA, so I can't tell you what those are, but there is a price point to it, and I would love to make that price point transparent to users, so they understand, to readers, so they understand that a book with DRM costs more to them. It costs more to produce, it costs more to them. That's my way of saying of how I would try and address it if I could. But at the end of the day, at least right now in this world, we couldn't have, the second question every publisher asked when our numbers weren't relevant back in September was, do you do DRM? What's your DRM solution? And the conversation didn't go much further when we said we didn't have one at that time.
Are you developing for Android and Symbian?
Yes. Our first mobile version of Stanza was actually an Android application. We entered the Google Android contest last April, and we couldn't make it past the second round, so we ended up deciding to, couldn't get past to the second round. We didn't get out of the first round, so we ended up deciding to build a version of Stanza for something that actually had devices. So. But Android will be the next version of Stanza. And then right now we're thinking it'll be BlackBerry after that. But the nice thing is once we're back to the Java world as opposed to the Objective-C COCO world, that's Symbian, that's Android, and that's RIM. So.
What would you consider to be the primary factors that you think are going to drive mass consumer adoption of e-books? Do you think it's a consolidation or a standardization of formats or device, and also maybe the integration of
as much as I want to come up with, tell you it's a bunch of technology stuff, it's more Oprah's. I mean, this is not a technology. There's enough technology out there right now that it can be a good experience. Yes, it would be nice if the guy who emailed me who had 7,000 .lit books could actually read them on the iPhone. He's locked into Microsoft for a long period of time. I wish those were but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be more Oprahs and the Oprahs in other countries, and whoever the Oprah equivalent is, that's the mainstream. The more you see, actors and actresses carrying around Kindles and reading them in bars and stuff like that, or in coffee shops, that's where you're going to see it. This is a marketing problem, not a technology problem. Okay, thanks everyone. And I'm doing a demo. Oh, can I do one more? Okay.
I'm actually not in the publishing business, I'm in the internet business. And one of the things I find interesting is that more and more books are now showing up in torrents.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that seems apparent is that even though the industry's existed for almost 20 years, and 400 pixels only recently, iPhones are around 1%. But how much time do these folks have to do something before what happens to the music industry happens to them? Because the reality is that this isn't being driven by your business models, right? This is a complete, contradiction to many of your business models. This is being driven by consumers. How much time do they really have to figure it out?
God, this is a layup for me on the DRM issue too, isn't it? Yeah, and DRM's been so effective in preventing that. Look, the reality is there's going to be a group of people going to, if there's a will or a way, they're going to figure out a way of getting these for free. And that's not your audience. For the publishers, that's not their audience. For them, it's the people that are going to, the 99% of the world that wants to actually pay for the stuff and wants to read it on 2 or 3 devices. That's your audience. Those are the guys that are going to pay. So in my mind, shoot, J.K. Rowling, her books are the first things on BitTorrent, and she doesn't even make them available electronically. So that's the ultimate DRM protection, and that doesn't work. So, again, this has been the same in the software industry, and people still pay for software. You can look for examples out there that exist. But it's a concern, but I don't think it's one that people should be worrying about. I think you should focus on the people that want to pay. And I'm doing a demo later, so some cool new features of Stanza.